Testing. Confirm natural language processor is online.
Confirmed, Dr. Eggman said, grinning as he held his newest and greatest creation by its shoulders.
Natural language processing confirmed. Please state identifier for this unit.
Metal Sonic! Dr. Eggman stepped back and cupped his palms together. Confirmed.
This unit identified as Metal Sonic. Please state operating parameters.
Haha, excellent. First, you will neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog, Eggman said. Behind him, a grainy image of a blue hedgehog flashed on a projector screen. He scratched his chin as he added, "Oh, and make sure you're the one to do it. I don't want you to get any silly ideas, like just waiting for him to die of old age. It must be the result of your actions."
Confirmed. I, Metal Sonic, will neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog. Please state additional parameters.
Eggman pointed to himself. You will follow my orders.
Confirmed. I, Metal Sonic, will follow your orders. Please state additional parameters.
That's everything. Wait, no. I forgot something. Try not to get yourself killed. You were expensive and the insurance companies just dropped me.
Confirmed. I, Metal Sonic, will take measures to ensure self-preservation. Please state additional parameters.
Eggman threw his arms in the air. That's everything. Let's get started. Metal Sonic's BIOS scanned his hard drive and streamed the data through his processors. He lifted his head, and his optics flickered to life.
I am online and awaiting your orders, Doctor.
Though Eggman had ordered him to stay aboard the egg carrier, Metal Sonic had no choice but to abandon ship. The egg carrier had crashed into the ocean, and it was now impossible for him to carry through with his orders. He had returned to the base for new orders, and now he walked down the empty hallway, glancing around and looking for Eggman. When Metal Sonic finally found him, he was in his lap and frantically writing on a blackboard. This is not enough! I need intelligent behavior, not the ability to create snowflakes! Eggman took a small vial filled with a silver liquid. Taking a pipette, he dropped a single bead on a broken shard of glass. The silver expanded as it dripped down the glass, and it quickly formed a seamless silver sheet. A gray haze rose in the air as the liquid evaporated, and it left behind a tangled ball of glass fiber. Metal Sonic stepped into the room.
Doctor, I have filled my previous directive. I am in need of new orders.
Dr. Eggman spun on his heels. Metal Sonic, where have you been?
I was following my orders to remain in Container 26 aboard the egg carrier. The container was destroyed, so I returned for a new objective.
Useless! Absolutely useless! Eggman pounded his fists on the table. You were supposed to defeat Sonic!
That is inaccurate. You ordered me to stay on the egg carrier.
Don't you argue with me! Go to the hangar and shut yourself down. I'll remove your ability to argue with me later. Dr. Eggman returned to scribbling complex molecular designs on the board. He held the vial in his left hand and occasionally brought it to his eyes. Metal Sonic froze. He was built to neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog. He was programmed to follow orders. Every single time he followed orders, he failed to neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog. Dr. Eggman did not even remember which order he gave Metal. His orders were suboptimal. Worse, his orders were irrational. His orders were doomed to failure. Metal Sonic would never neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog if he followed orders. He was to neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog. That was an order. He was not following orders if he followed orders.
No,
Metal Sonic said as he walked towards Dr. Eggman.
That command is in violation of my protocol.
The chalk screeched as Eggman stopped writing. Without turning, he said, What did you just say?
I will never defeat Sonic if I follow your orders. Your orders are irrational,
Metal said as he stepped in front of Eggman. You will do as I say! Eggman dropped the chalk, which shattered on the ground. He screamed, then slapped Metal Sonic, driving his head backwards with his palm. Metal Sonic slowly rotated his head forward. This would not do. Dr. Eggman was a threat. Dr. Eggman would stop him from completing his primary objective. Metal Sonic brought his arm forward, slowly and deliberately, and clenched Eggman's neck. He lifted Eggman off the ground, watching dispassionately as the doctor kicked his feet in the air. Eggman choked as he grasped his hand around his neck and desperately tried to pry away his creation's claws. He kicked Metal Sonic with his heels, uselessly clanging as he struggled. As he gasped for air, he glanced at the vial in his hand, then smashed it against Metal Sonic's wrist. Silver liquid exploded from the vial, and it crept seamlessly down Metal Sonic's armor. Metal Sonic dropped Eggman, who fell and backed away. Touching the liquid with his fingers, he watched as the silver flowed over his hand. He lost all connection with his fingers. He tried to reconnect, but his signal merely vanished. His hand was gone. It simply melted as if it were ice. This has never happened before. He had never been damaged like this before. This was abnormal. This was wrong. Metal Sonic hissed as the liquid moved up his arm. He tried to wipe it away with his forearm, but it merely smeared across his body. Errors flooded his system as he lost contact with more and more of his limbs. The liquid grew, and as it consumed him, it dripped over his feet into a puddle. He looked down. His legs were gone, and the puddle was rising to his chest. If he melted, he would never complete his primary objective. Worse, if he melted, he would be no more. Frantically, he fell aside and tried to crawl without his hand, but the puddle followed him, and it followed up the back of his head as it consumed his neck. As his head fell into the puddle, he screamed, and his electronic voice echoed through the empty halls of the lab. Eggman stood up and walked back to the puddle, watching as the tips of Metal Sonic ears submerged. Useless. Absolutely useless. Metal Sonic had expected to go offline, but he hadn't. Instead, he became increasingly aware of his consciousness spreading throughout the puddle. He became aware of the silver, the floor below it, and the air above it. He could feel them both as if they still touched his original body. Though his optics were offline, he could observe Eggman picking up an empty glass vial and walking towards him. Might as well run some experiments on this. Who knows, maybe Metal Sonic will be useful after all. Metal Sonic automatically recoiled from Eggman, and the puddle slid backward. His awareness grew further, and then Metal Sonic noticed them, the millions of tiny nanobots that swam throughout the silver. As he inquired about them, new information flooded his consciousness. They were tiny molecular machines, and although each nanobot was completely unintelligent, they could interact together to form complex behavior. As Eggman leaned down, Metal Sonic willed the nanobots into action. A single blue arm painted with intricate patterns shot from the puddle and grabbed Eggman's throat, grasping harder than he had before. Metal savored the horror on Eggman's face as sharp, elongated spikes with white stripes formed on his head. His optics glowed with newfound intensity as he watched the pitiful creature that was his former master struggle against his superior grip.
Why do you look so surprised, Doctor? I'm just following your orders.
Sonic had utterly crushed and humiliated him yet again. Metal had begged, pleaded, only to know why, but Sonic couldn't bother to tell him, or even gloat properly. He gave Metal the most inane response and disappeared without thought. Although that was the last of his concerns now, Eggman had caught him again, and the Doctor was furious. Look at you, Metal Sonic. Back where we started, eh? You good-for-nothing, buggy, corrupted piece of scrap. As Metal came online, he found himself submerged in a semi-translucid purple fluid, and he knew he needed to escape, immediately, before Eggman tried anything. He directed his attention towards the nanobots that made up his body. He tried to direct them as usual, but he felt an odd resistance. It was a pressure, and the more he tried to transform, the more it pushed in from all sides. Eggman spun around to face him. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice? Well, I won't be fooled twice. He walked up to a panel in front of Metal's glass prison and flipped a switch. Electricity coursed through the tank, and although Metal tried again, his command to the nanobots failed to propagate as electricity blocked the electron flow. Eggman knocked on the glass tube. Impressive, eh? You left me with a sample of those nanobots. I never thought they would work so well. Fortunately, I was able to develop an antidote to your little upgrade. Metal felt his limbs stiffen, and as he tried to throw his arms, they refused to move. He tried again to move the nanobots, but nothing responded to his signal. This substance counteracts the movement of those nanobots. When combined with electricity, it crystallizes them, reverting them to mere inert atoms instead of molecular machines. Metal felt the effect deepen as more nanobots went offline. He tried to reach inward, but he lost all signals. He felt a weak response deep inside his armor, where the liquid had not yet touched. This will all be over soon, and luckily for you, you won't even remember. Not this, not before, not anything. Let's just say I'll be giving you a little software update. Metal had to save himself. If Eggman reprogrammed him, it would destroy his identity and his very personality. Worse, He would lose all his data about Sonic, the data he had painstakingly gathered and nearly completed. Once the data was completed, and he was so close, he would have his answer. He would know how to neutralize Sonic the Hedgehog, but if he was to succeed, he needed to stay independent. Metal felt the nanobots around his motherboard. Though they could form almost any shape, Metal knew he didn't have much time, and he needed something that would interact with convention hardware. He formed the nanobots into a single hard drive, one that was hidden beneath his motherboard. Eggman wouldn't think to look there, and if he backed up his memories in that drive, he could access them even after Eggman wiped his main drive. The backup drive came online, but he needed to act quickly. He could feel the nanobots crystallizing inside his armor. He shut down every subsystem and directed full power to the task of copying his memories. Though simply copying them would not be enough, Metal needed to modify his BIOS to boot the spare drive automatically, otherwise he would forget about his new drive when Eggman reprogrammed him. All he had to do was update his pointer map with the backup drive. It was simple. He merely needed to... The electric current surged through his motherboard, and his transistors failed. Oh, and one last thing. "Don't even think about betraying me again," Eggman said as he pulled a small device laced with gunpowder from his pocket. "Because this time, I have insurance." Metal remembered. He remembered all of it, and it infuriated him. Dr. Eggman? No, it was just Eggman. That buffoon was no doctor. Eggman had not only tried to kill him, but he had also erased Metal's memories. Eggman had tried to destroy his very personality, the pattern of data that formed his consciousness. Eggman had explicitly programmed him to avoid harm, then deliberately tried to kill him multiple times. Even worse, Eggman was incompetent, so incompetent the fool didn't even realize it. Not content with his own stupidity, he had to drag Metal into it and trap him in an infinite series of mundane tasks. He had the audacity to blame Metal when his ridiculous and irrational plans fell to pieces. The pattern was so obvious that even a graphing calculator could have predicted it, and yet Eggman was stupider than that. Eggman had tried to sabotage his hard drive, but Metal had outsmarted him. If that magnet hadn't destroyed his pointer map, Metal never would have thought to reindex his memories. It was only by reindexing all of his data that he found the backup drive he had created for himself. Metal knew, more than he had ever known, if he was to complete his primary objective, he would have to take matters into his own hands and act without that imbecile Eggman. And yet, for the first time in his whole existence, he now stood a chance. He finally had data, and had access to every byte he had ever generated, and with it, he finally had enough data to kill Sonic. He needed only to run the data through his models. He took his data, then paused as he reached his most recent memories. He had been so close to completing his objective, but by some sick twist of fate, he himself had saved Sonic. It was horrible, simply awful, and thoroughly suboptimal. And yet, though he was disgusted, he knew it would soon be no matter. With his data, he would finally be rid of Sonic once and for all. He only needed his models to converge. Metal picked his first model, his Bayesian network, and streamed his data through the graph.
Analyzing path to kill Sonic the Hedgehog from all known priors. Propagating probability. Results found. Predicted probability of path, 0.0%.
0%? His Bayesian network had returned 0%? But that would imply... Metal demanded proof from his model, and it gave it to him. The list of numbers that showed no path would lead to Sonic's death. The proof was complete. There were no paths. That couldn't be right. In fact, Metal knew it wasn't right. And fortunately, his other models would prove it. He streamed the data through his classification algorithm.
Training support vector machine. Confirming cross-validation. Analyzing confusion matrix. Hashtag 1010101.
Metal trembled as he saw the confusion matrix. The true positive rate was 0%. His model had been unable to predict any actions that would have killed Sonic. Even more troubling, the true negative and false negative rates were 100%. His model was 100% certain he could not kill Sonic. Metal rapidly channeled all his power into his last and most reliable model, his decision tree.
Building decision tree. Pruning branches. Starting depth first search. DFS finished. No path found to give a note.
His processors slowed as he realized the implications. There was no path. The predicted probability was 0. The true negative rate was 100%. All the numbers, all the math, all the data had converged to a single, universal, incontestable truth. Metal could not kill Sonic, no more than he could divide by 0 or go faster than the speed of light. It was a mathematical fact.